Welcome to another episode of Visibility Era, the podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us, actually a friend from high school, Max Lowy. Max is the co-founder of Attention Trading, a full-service digital marketing agency that creates custom solutions to reflect brands' unique personality, which you know we love. We're big on personality, authenticity, so I can't wait to dive into a conversation today. His company transforms ordinary into extraordinary, ensuring that his clients shine when it comes to all things marketing. So Max, welcome to the show. I can't wait to dive in because I know that your family has like a bunch of different businesses. You have a unique background. So thank you for joining us
Yeah,
today. We're
no,
gonna go.
I'm super excited to be here. I know that when I saw you guys were doing more guests outreach, I was like, this would be perfect. I'm excited to talk to you guys and see what kind of value I can bring to the podcast. So
Yeah. Today we have all New Jersey people too.
I
All of
wow,
was
our
thinking of
listeners
that
know.
before we got on. I was like, Lydia and I always joke that we like brand position New Jersey as like the coolest place on earth. You know, we got mountains, we got New York City, we got Philly, we got the ocean. So like now we have a third person to
yes.
add into
Well,
that.
it is funny because I went to college in Connecticut. My wife's from Connecticut, and when I was in college, everyone just, oh, Jersey, like that's what everyone called me. And no one, Mom, Lydia, Monmouth County is just so nice.
Yeah.
And it's such a nice area. We have the beaches, but we are centrally located to Philly and New York. And just people don't know the beauty that we do have here. Obviously, like you mentioned, like my family has been here for literally ever. Our family moving company is 100 years old this year, so
Wow.
a lot of strong ties to the community, and I think that that has allowed me to understand, the importance of community, but also how to create that with other brands that we're working with on their marketing, because it's something I learned firsthand.
Yeah, I love that. I also love that you mentioned how beautiful Monmouth County is because, as we know, I moved to Florida, and a lot of the people in Florida think that New Jersey looks like Newark when you fly in. And so I love to just like brand position the shit out of New Jersey. I'm like, look at how beautiful our beaches are. And they're like, wow, that's amazing. Where is that? I'm like, that's like most of it. We're also the Garden State. Like, anyways, I love it. So, which is funny because we were talking about how you are going to be a digital nomad next year. So let's start with maybe your story and then pivot into how you got to be remote, and kind of do the digital nomad thing because I just find that so interesting. I feel like it's everybody's dream when you become an entrepreneur. You're like, I want to be traveling and do the whole thing. So tell us all about it.
Yeah. I'll take you guys on a little journey, I guess, of my background.
Yeah.
Like I said, my family's had a moving company for 100 years, which is crazy to say. So I grew up on the trucks. I was 14 years old. Realized at a young age that I did not want to be a mover my whole life. It's not a very fun and enjoyable job, but I learned hard work. Uh, Went out on to college, and we started noticing back at the family moving business a lot of like waste that was happening during the moving process. People were just throwing stuff out, so like clothing, furniture, food. It was either left behind or thrown away. And so we said, what if we ask our customers for any of the unopened, non-perishable food, and we should just collect it for like a month and just bring it to the local food bank, which was the Monmouth County Food Bank. Now it's Fulfill, and thought it was a cool thing to do. So we did this for about a month, collected food and brought it over to the food bank. They asked if we wanted a tour. Me and my brother, we honestly haven't had a tour of the food bank. I think like an elementary school class trip. So it was good to go. They told us that there was 40,000 people in Monmouth and Ocean County that didn't know where their next meal was coming from. And obviously you guys know the area, but anyone that's listening that doesn't, it's a very affluent, area, home of Bruce Springsteen, Bon Jovi, mega mansions on the Jersey Shore. You just don't see hunger. And so we thought, we're one moving company that just asked a very simple question during the moving process. Didn't really create extra work for us. And we collected 300 pounds of food. What if every mover was asking this question? And so at that time, my brother, he was doing marketing for Mercedes. I was doing marketing for Versace and Lacoste. And we we basically started a 501c3 nonprofit, knew nothing about the nonprofit space, branded the organization, called it Move for Hunger. Fast forward 15 years, Move for Hunger is now in all 50 states in Canada, working with thousands of moving companies, relocation professionals, corporate housing providers, really anyone part of the relo space. And we've been able to collect and deliver over 40 million pounds of food. So the programs work. We've made it effortless to get involved on the moving side. And we're getting big brands involved in what we're doing as well. Really for sustainability, food waste, you name it. Like there's a lot of different ways that we're creating that. So I was helping run Move for Hunger for, I want to say 8 years full time. They have a full-time great team now. My brother, he's still the executive director over there. I want to say they have a team of about 20, 25 people, fully remote, and they're doing great work. So at that point, I went, my dad and my uncles came knocking. They needed a little assistance at the family biz. Again, I never thought I was going to go back to the moving space, but I thought maybe there's an opportunity to help. And so it's exactly what I did. I went in day one, and you would think like a 95-year-old company at that time would have, systems and processes, and literally everything was in a notebook. I don't know.
That's my worst nightmare.
It was like, I don't know how to operate like that. So that first week I, custom CRM, got our warehousing, all of our warehouses online, and really built out marketing plans, sales, funnels, strategies, and led the team, for the marketing and sales specifically, and then also help with operations. So I was doing that for about 5 years, and got them to a place where there was systems in place, and I felt good and comfortable to go off and do something else. And this was right about COVID era. So it was a crazy time, obviously, for everyone. Probably not the best time to go look for a new venture. And I probably should say, during this whole time, we've always had attention trading. It's been very much a side project, and it really started off with event marketing. So event-based marketing. We would hold our own events. We would do events with other brands as well, but it was very much event-based focused. And from there, took on another role at another national nonprofit for a little bit. And then the one thing I always wanted, and I never really had it per se, was agency experience. Everything I was doing for the brands that I worked for internal was agency style work, but I never technically had agency experience. So I went out and found an agency. They brought me on as head of marketing, specifically for their, like the brand. And they were the largest agency for brands that were launching on like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, those style platforms. So was there, learned a lot, had a great experience. And then really just decided to see what we could do full time with attention trading. And so now we're in this space now. I've also dabbled in like the Web3 space, running marketing teams as well. But we're also doing more fractional CMO style work now, which is really interesting. It's just a different way to package our services, because we're doing the same thing. We're just packaging it a little differently. But I think that goes in line with exactly what you guys do on a regular basis. It's just like the messaging. How do we tweak the messaging to, get the results that we want and position ourselves the best way that we possibly can? So we're seeing a lot of success with that. And yeah, just really excited for this year. We brought on a ton of new clients, and we're looking to grow. So really excited. We have a strong team, and then we work with a lot of different contractors too for things that we don't do in-house, but we trust them and we've worked with them for years. So we're growing, which is good.
I noticed some things about you like right away, because it reminds me of myself. You've had so many different experiences in like many different industries, and I feel like that all piles together, and it shows you the pathway forward because you've had so many like different experiences. And I am curious, just from your upbringing, like Lydia and I always joke that they're like opportunity people and then Debbie Downers, and you feel like an opportunity person. So how much do you think like your parents are entrepreneurs, your families are entrepreneurs? Did that kind of brush off on you as a kid? Like, was that your pathway of there's so much opportunity, there's problems, there's solutions, I can fix and fill the gap?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think growing up, I probably didn't realize, any of that. I mean, I've watched my dad, build, scale, and sustain businesses, right? They've sold businesses, they've won with businesses, they've lost with some businesses. And I think, my dad and my uncles, they've been part of, like, I want to say 15 startups. And they've done well and with a lot of them, and some of them failed, right? And so I think just seeing the success and failure, from the background, I think it definitely played a role in how I operate, how I think about things. I mean, you definitely hit the nail on the head. Like, I'm definitely an opportunist where, okay, well, what if we do this? What if we can do this? Like, why can't we? So I'm always looking to help. I think one thing that I love is small business. I love helping people really figure out what those solutions are. And I think I always say that's probably the biggest differentiator for, like, our marketing agency. Yeah, we're a full service digital marketing agency, but we offer a lot more than that. So any of our clients, we're looking very holistically at the business, right? Because I've been an operator before. I've helped grow and scale businesses and organizations, and not just handled the marketing. So we look at it holistically. We want to understand, like, the goals, the business goals, the sales goals, like everything. So then we can take that information and build off of that and make sure there's alignment within the organization, make sure there's alignment within the campaigns that we're putting in place, the messaging that we're putting in place. So, hey, if this quarter, this sales goal is this product or this service, we need to make sure that, one, our paid efforts are going towards that. Also, organic is also supplementing it. So when that person is seeing what that goal is, they're seeing it over and over and over again through email, blog, social, organic, paid, like every aspect, right? And for me, it's all about that alignment.
I love that. Speaking of opportunity, so when you went into your family company and you saw the papers everywhere and you were like, oh my God, no.
Yeah.
I love that you saw the opportunity to shift, because I think when we think about small businesses, a lot of them are operating in, like, an older way of maybe doing things, where we always talk about this, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But also, we need to shift with the times and really just look at, I mean, marketing in general is just shifting and changing. So can you give us maybe a little story of, like, what you see when your clients come to you? I bet they come to you thinking, like, oh, we want this, and you're like, no, 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 we need to, like, go back to the drawing board and maybe restructure some things. So a really, like, tangible example for the audience to just understand what that looks like.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think I have a unique perspective because of small business, but small family business, right? Family business, especially if you're part of the family, it's everything, right? It's good and it's bad. There's tons of arguments, there's tons of successes and celebrations, but, like, it's hard because you're family, right? And I think the way that I was able to navigate that, and don't get me wrong, like, when I first got there, like, it was kind of a failure, because I was like, oh, we got to change this, we got to change that, we got to change that. And my uncle, who's 60 years old, who's one of the most talented at rigging and warehousing, and, like, you need to learn the business, right? But he would not use the tech. And so it's just like, I'm trying to show you that we can make your life easier. And it was until then where I was like, okay, how can I show him, right? So he's a perfect example, because, one, love him to death, he's my uncle. But two, it was frustrating because we were just kept battling back and forth. Like, we were just going, and he wouldn't use the tech. So I said, what is he like? Just personally, he's a huge boater, right? So I said, okay, let's look at the brands he likes and follows, right? Whether it's that boat company or this engine or whatever it is. And let's see what the tools that they're using, right? Same thing with my dad. We're in the office one day, and he gets a text confirmation about a dentist appointment. And he's like, oh, no, I got a dentist. I just got a text. I was like, that would be really nice if Lowe's would offer a text service, right? Like, so the day before, we're making sure that everyone is ready. They're packed up, because a lot of times what would happen is, oh, we would get to site and the customer wasn't packed. They didn't have enough boxes, but they weren't sure if they should call us. So, like, we would have to go and come back, get more materials, go back. So efficiency wise, as simple as like a text messaging appointment reminder would be so beneficial. And I said, as a consumer, you appreciate that, right? As a consumer, wouldn't it be awesome, especially moving, if you guys have moved, and it's one of the most stressful things you can go through, but like, it would be awesome to get a text 20 minutes before the crew showed up. Hey, I'm Troy, I'm your crew leader. You're going to have Jamar, Rashawn, and everything, all the details. So like when I'm showing up and you're trusting me with everything I own that I've collected for 30 years, and I'm just to strangers, right? Like just giving it to you guys, I'm praying it doesn't break, right? It's a very stressful situation each and every time, and every move is different. So how do we create that uniqueness, but also that trust, but also give them the sense of that your stuff is safe, right? We are professionals, and this is why we're showing up. And we're showing up beforehand, we're over communicating. And so like, to me, over communication in like, especially like the service space, it's key to success. So I guess that was a long-winded answer to that question. But yeah, for me, it was understanding how to communicate why we needed these changes. But to me, it was like, okay, what do you like to use as a consumer, not for our business? And that's how I was able to connect the dots there with the family.
No, that was a great, great answer. So thank you for making it long-winded, because I think for me, it really just helped paint the picture of like, okay, this is how this works. And what I really love about that is you looked at the problem. I have had so many friends tell me horror stories about moving, and how, I mean, the biggest thing is trust, right? So I
Yeah.
love that you looked at the problem and said, okay, how can we make the solution? How can we make it better for the clients and help us trust us? So that's super fantastic. Bridget, you had questions. We were talking beforehand, of course. You had questions about different types of marketing, and I really loved that. So yeah, I'm gonna
Well,
pass the mic over to you.
Max, I creeped on your, attention trading Instagram,
Oh,
and
nice.
I think you shared something from about a month ago that talked about, traditional marketing versus social media marketing. And, maybe there's like a blend between the two. And I would assume that as a, moving company, you're probably using more of those like traditional methods. Maybe you're doing billboards, ads, print, whatever it is. But I'm assuming now that with attention trading, like you're using social media and maybe you're doing like online ads. And I'm just so curious, like what you think about that crossover between the space. And I think how can they support one another as we move into like obviously a continuing online digital
Yeah.
space?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I made that post, I want to say like a month ago, right? And I thought it would be a little controversial, and I posted it everywhere, right? To see what people would say. And I got some good feedback in a few different channels. The idea was, when does social media become considered traditional marketing? It's tried, it's tested, it works. We're 30 years in to digital marketing efforts. But like, who makes that call when does it become traditional? Because we are using it in a traditional sense. I understand the definition right now is it's traditional is offline basically, but like, when does that change?
I agree.
Like, when does that change? It doesn't make sense that like we aren't teaching it as a tried, true, tested model, and every business should be doing this. When I was in college, again, that was 15 years ago, maybe a little longer, I don't even know.
Do the
Like,
math.
we're still learning about like just things that are so outdated and old, that I know things are being taught, now, that are more up to speed and useful. But it's just, when does that shift actually happen? Because every business should be using social to a certain degree. Every business should be making sure their SEO is built right. Their websites are built for whatever their goal is, right? So if it's for conversions, it's built for conversions. If it's for information, you're making sure it's stuffed with the correct information, right? And it's having a great user experience. And so I think there's just such a lack of understanding. I always say, you don't know what you don't know. And this probably goes back to like opportunistic piece. Like, I'm very solution focused. Like, there's always problems. Doesn't matter where you go, there's always a problem. So, okay, great. Like, what can we do? What can we change? What can we tweak? And the thing about attention trading, we have clients in every different industry, fashion, home services, HR, just like all across the board. And so we haven't decided to niche down to a specific industry where a lot of agencies do. And we've taken that route for a few reasons. One, we like to be, we want to stay as creative as possible. We don't want to get bored, and we're scared, to be completely honest, that we could get bored by only doing one industry. That being said, it allows us to pull like things that actually work from that industry and try it over here, because hey, we tested it, it works great. Our clients are converting, and we should maybe, if we tweak this over here for you guys, this could work too. And so, and it's not competing, right? That's the one thing too, like we could only do, plumbers marketing for plumbers. And I don't know, it's just like we're competing against each other, kind of, depending on, who we take on as a client, demographics speaking. And so I think for us, that's one of the biggest reasons we want to stay creative, and we want to be able to utilize our successes in other industries and kind of cross to see what will work, in other places.
I love that you're asking the question, what is working right now? I have definitely heard of kids in college still learning very dated things. Like even in PR, they're still learning press releases. Guess what? Press releases don't effing matter or work unless you're a big company blasting it out. Like nobody cares if you're a small business and you send out a press release. We just released this product. Like nobody cares. You really need to do catered outreach. Whereas if, I don't know, Gibson Guitar released like a special guitar with Taylor Swift, like that would be a press release that makes sense.
Trustworthy.
Right, it's press worthy. And so when you're a small business, you need to really like share that authority. You need to, number one, decide that you are an authority and then show your value. So it's a little bit different, but similarly to marketing, it's like, what does work for this industry? What works for that? What works for small businesses? So speaking of small businesses, can you give us some types of examples of marketing strategies that work and maybe test and play? Because we hear so much like ads work, no, social media ads work, no, this works, no, that works. And I feel like when it comes to marketing, it's such a blanket statement and everyone feels like they're, excuse me, everyone feels like they're pulled in a million directions.
Yeah. Well, I'll say as an agency owner, right? I don't know what's going to work. Like, and any agency that says, hey, I guarantee this, they're lying, like, to be completely honest. So what we do is we take the data that you guys have available. If you have data to provide, we analyze it, and then we use our gut marketing, sales, operations decision, and make decisions based off of data. And then we iterate, and then we iterate, and then we iterate, right? So like that's what we do as marketers. We want to test. So once we create a landing page, for an ad that's being sent, it's hitting a landing page. What is happening on the landing page? Is it converting? Why is it converting well? Why isn't it converting well? And then we're optimizing, and then we're optimizing, and then we're optimizing. Like that's all you can do. It's just testing when it comes to marketing. That being said, I think the one thing that we deal a lot with, especially on like the social media marketing side, we do social media management. We also do just like strategy and then plan. So like we'll create a strategy plan. Here, you guys go execute on it. Or if you need assistance, we can also execute. So we offer a few different models for a lot of our services of like a, hey, full service agency, a do with you or a do for you. And so a lot of the times, like the biggest thing that I always say is consistency. You need to be consistent. You need to see if something is successful, you need to let that plan happen, right? You created that strategy. You took that information, you took the data, you created a plan, put it in place, let it run. A lot of small businesses, they'll wait a week, 2 weeks, they're not seeing any traction. It's just like, oh, we got, up in the air, and then they're pushed back against the wall. And you never make a good decision when you're up against the wall, right? And so if you put that thought and intention into a plan and a strategy, let it ride out, let it see how it plays out. And then you can make your tweaks. You can't just keep pivoting and switching just like that, because you're never going to be able to track and measure the success or the not successfulness of that kind of campaign or piece of it. So consistency for me is so important right now, especially with like social. And you're seeing some of my posts, like authenticity, the realness, the raw, the behind the scenes, like that's what people can connect with. When you're talking brand, it's really hard for an individual to connect with a brand. It's really easy for an individual to connect with an individual, right? And so some brands, some companies, their CEOs, their owners, their exec team, like they don't want to be the face, and that's okay. But we have to create that personality for that brand, because it's a lot harder to connect with just a brand. And the messaging coming from a brand versus an individual is very different too. So like we do thought leadership on LinkedIn for clients. And so whether we're working with, the executive vice president of sales versus just the brand, like we'll go in and create content around him. And yes, the majority of the content that we're creating for him is not about the brand, has nothing to do with brand. Yeah, we're going to sprinkle that stuff in, but we need people to like you and trust you and know that you're the authority in your space, right? And so when they do that, yeah, we're creating this personal brand around you, and you can take that wherever you go. Hopefully, if you're the owner, you're going to stay. But like at the end of the day, we're just trying to create that brand authority and industry expertise. So when people are talking, or have questions about this, they know to come to you, not because you're brand, but because you're the expert and you just happen to work for this brand.
This is like there's so much beautiful crossover, because that's exactly what, we talk about when companies want to get press and more exposure. It's like you are the face of the company. People need to like know and trust you, and being more human is actually going to support you in that journey. So I absolutely love that. I do have like two like little questions here. So the first one would be, you mentioned some of these data points that small business owners will come to you with. Like, what are those data points? And then let's talk budget, because I feel that for small business owners, they have no idea what that should look like. How much is it a percentage of their revenue? Like, what does it look like? So data and budget.
Okay. So data wise, you can look at a lot of different pieces. And to me, it always stems back to like, what is the goal, right? Let me backtrack 1 second. So a lot of businesses they really care about followers on social still, which is like, it's blowing my mind. Like how we have to just educate about that. Like people buy followers all the time. Like followers doesn't
Such a
matter.
bad idea.
It's such a bad idea. So again, we never promise followers. Our goal is engagement, and what engagement looks like to hit those goals. But a lot of times they'll come and they'll be like, oh, this post didn't work. Like nothing happened. We got 5 likes. It's like, listen, if it didn't work, it didn't work. One, in the digital space, great. Okay. If you want to take it down, take it down. 2, especially small business. I'm not talking about like Adidas, right? Like, not talking about major brand, small businesses, anywhere, under $50 million. If you make a post and it doesn't hit, no one cares. No one cared that it hit or didn't hit, right? It's more of an ego boost realistically. And it's hard to like tell them that there is power in creating content that is connecting with people. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And it's a really hard pill to swallow for a business to hear, oh, so if it doesn't matter, then why am I doing it? Well, you're doing it for consistency, because it might not matter that it didn't get the post or the engagement that you thought would like, but like the consistency over time, you're building brand, you're building awareness, you're building that brand authority. Like that's the important piece here, not, oh, I didn't get a lot of likes on this. And so that's always a hard pill for some small businesses to swallow, because if they are paying for that service, they want to see results. I always say, I'm a big believer in organic. And let's see what is connecting, what's doing well organically, and let's convert that into some kind of paid campaign. If you don't have a budget for paid. So to kind of like transition into paid, it really depends on the size of your organization, of like what your marketing spend should look like. We always say anywhere from, if you could do 10% of your revenue for marketing, like that would be amazing, right? Like that's good. We work with brands that, will give us 3%. and we have to figure out where we're going to allocate this budget. And so there's a lot that can go into understanding what we should do for that specific business in that specific community, depending on what they're selling. And so if it's a very localized business, okay, maybe we're doing less, digital, and we're doing more community-based things, and we're sponsoring events, and we're doing these kind of things. So this is where like the crossover between digital and traditional it plays a really big role for small business. To give you an example, with Lowy's moving, like, yeah, we sponsor a lot of things within the community. We're part of local boards and associations, and that's the traditional marketing, or our marketing efforts, at least, that go into that piece. But then, yeah, should we be running ads? Should we be running Google PPC? Should we be running display? Should we be running awareness? Should we be running only on social? Okay, when it comes to social, where should it be? LinkedIn, Meta, TikTok, right? And so there's a lot of options, which is good. But if you don't know, which again, a lot of people don't know what you don't know, that's where you should look for, someone that you can trust to help guide you to make better decisions based off the data, right? Like, I know LinkedIn ads, they work well for a brand, but they're the most expensive ad. If you're looking for quick results, yeah, I would suggest doing some paid advertising over just organic. But is it going to be as fruitful long term? Organics longevity, SEO longevity, right? Like, you're just planting these seeds so you can be that you can be that business that people know and understand. I would say it's so funny too. And just to confirm, like, we actually don't even do the marketing for Lowy's anymore. When I was there, obviously we were doing it, but we don't do
Sorry,
it.
Dad. Sorry, Uncle.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do want to put that out there. But I always find it interesting when, like, I'm on Facebook and in like the Ocean Cares group, and someone's like, "Oh, can anyone recommend a moving company?" And I'm just like, how do they not know it's Lowy's? Like, we're the
Yeah.
biggest mover in Monmouth County, 30 trucks, tons of guys. We move everyone, like
Yeah.
every business, every hospital, every school, like literally everyone. But, and this is where the consistency is key. People are moving in, they're moving out. Again, this is where a post from Lowy's doesn't matter. Like, no one cares, until it matters to them. And so that's why you need to be in the right place at the right time for the right buyer. And so that's why you need to stay as consistent as possible. And when you fall off, yeah, people aren't going to remember you. And so 100-year-old company, we're the biggest in the space in our community. People still don't know that they should go to Lowy's. And so, like, I always find it funny, but it's such a great example of consistency and why it's so important.
That answer needs to be everywhere. I'm like, I have 1,000 things to say from what you just shared with us. Okay, so I want to take it back to the first point when you were like, a post didn't hit and then they want to pull out right away. And I think what you shared with allowing consistency to be something that happens with small business owners, and we have seen this too, because PR is a long-term strategy.
Yeah.
It takes time, but it's also like, hey, are you in it for the long haul? Or are you in it to just like make a quick buck, get in and get out? Because if we're in it for the long haul, we're going to want to implement these strategies that create the trust and create the authority. So I love that you shared, like, somebody posts this thought leader, post, and then nobody likes it and they're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? But when I think about posting online, I think about it as almost like a business card. Like, nobody cares what you had just mentioned until it becomes a problem for them or something to solve. So once they do have that trigger of like, oh, I saw Lowy's posted in this local community group that they are the best mover, I'm going to go to their page. And that's when they start to vet you and they start to look at your posts and they start to look at your marketing. And that's when it becomes really, really important. And we always say, like, hey, PR is not for you unless you actually have some foundations in place. If you don't have a professional like Instagram, or you don't have your digital real estate, what we like to call it, where you have a website, you have your Instagram, you have all this stuff, like, go back to the drawing board, do the foundations first, because it just doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I think our biggest struggle not our biggest struggle, but a struggle, at least for
Struggle.
sales, is pricing. And it kind of goes back to your budget question.
Mm,
You know, people think, especially with, AI and tools, it's like, oh, a website, $2,000. It's like, listen, you can get a website for $2,000. It's going to be a shit website. Like, it's not going to do what you need it to do.
gosh, AI, like we've been having so many conversations about this and we're just like,
Well,
yeah, it'll make sense eventually when it like becomes us. I don't know. But for right now, it's so inauthentic and like the way that it talks, like you can tell it's a robot. So like, okay, maybe you want it to make your website, but you need somebody to go in and fix it. Like
yeah,
it's a great foundation.
I mean, we use it to a certain degree
Yeah,
for a lot of things, right? And
right.
we love to automate as much as we possibly can. That's where like my operations mind goes. But yeah, it's a good tool. And I commented on a post literally yesterday, and I got a ton of feedback from it, from people just like agreeing.
Hmm.
Someone made it was for a job description. They put it out there, and like they said, like 80% of the people that applied, like you could tell, was just like AI written. And the thing
Ooh.
is, it's a tool. So just like use it as a tool. Don't use it as the overall solution. Like, yes, it's great for structuring out a framework, right? And like, okay, I want to talk about this. I don't know what order I should be in. Like use it the way that I think, at least right now, it's best positioned to be used.
Mm.
Will that eventually change? Yes. I mean, tech is crazy, right? It's scary, crazy, but it's exciting. But you don't want to you don't want to just overuse it and just give a bland robotic kind of answer or response to things. It's easy enough to do it. It is the easy way. And so when I say, yeah, you can get a $2,000 website built that is, a themed website, can't custom anything, then when you want to do something, it's going to cost you to do it because either you need a new website or the custom code needs to be embedded. Like there's a lot of things. So like we don't do that. Every
Yeah.
site that we build, it's custom for you. Yes, there's a price here, I guess, price tag to that, but it's going to act as a solution for you, right? So like that's what I mean. Like we take a very holistic approach. What is the goal of this? Is it only informational? Do you want landing page? Like we want to know what you're doing now and what you want to be doing. So we're building for the future. And every client's different. Like
Yeah.
we'll have a client that will do a $12,000 website. We'll do a $70,000 website. It depends on what they need. And I just think there's a really big lack of understanding what things actually cost. Yes, it's easy for someone to post on social. For us to manage a social media account for a business or a person, an individual, it's going to be a minimum $1,800, like minimum, because there's strategy, there's thought, there's process, there's things that go into that. Yeah, we want to work with small businesses, but we also need you to understand, like, there's a reason you're trusting us with it. It's because
Right.
we're going to put you in the best position possible for that service. And it's small business is tricky though. For me, I want to help as many people as we can. But okay, what's your budget? Then we could always kind of reverse engineer the budget. And then it doesn't actually make sense for us to do something because it's not enough. But we always try to work within budgets if we possibly can.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that budgets, just in general, when it comes to small business, it's just, this is for everybody listening because small business, I think a lot of people get the shiny object syndrome because we're trying to build something. And just remembering that when we think about budgets, going back to the traditional corporate structure, Bridget and I always joke around, like, there's a lot to learn because it's been working for many, many years. Think about like, hey, maybe we need to set aside money to budget for this because it's going to meet our goals and get us to our goals faster. So one of the last questions here, because I could talk to you, I feel like me and Bridget, I could talk to you for like 100 years. You speak our language, is for online business owners that are trying to maybe tap into communities. We've seen a huge shift in after like post-COVID and everything. A lot of people started businesses online. It was amazing, but people want to get in person. They want to build community. What kind of maybe traditional marketing strategies can we start implementing as an online business owner?
Yeah. I would say, more the traditional sense, some of the chamber of commerce
Mm.
is a great community to start. Um, Personally, I hate, it's so funny because I honestly consider myself like an introvert. No one else does, but like, I don't know. I just do.
Introverted extrovert. I get that. I'm the same
Until I
way.
meet you, like I hate going into like a networking event. It's like, hey, Max Lowy, like it's so corny. It's so
It is
cheesy.
corny.
And so I hate that more than anything. That being said, I think putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, building in public, I think it's very much in at the moment. And I think again, people can connect with it. People want to see you win. Like I see your guys post and I just want you to win. I want you guys to have so much success, right? Because like I'm just watching your content and it's real. And so I'm a believer that people are good at heart and they're gonna want me to win. And it's funny, I made a post the other day. Literally I record most of our calls and I'll chop it up and post something. And I posted this call on TikTok with one of our clients, and the comment was, "You look like you're 30. Turn your hat," because I was wearing my hat backwards.
Oh, I saw
Is
this
it?
on TikTok and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, he's got it
I was like,
backwards now.
that's what you got from that content. Because basically, that's not what I was talking about, optimizing, your
Yeah.
landing page. And someone commented, "Turn your hat around. You look like you're 30." And I was like, honestly, I'm about to turn 36. So like, that's a compliment, right? Like, it's just like, yes, I believe most people are good at heart, but then you see like those kind of comments, it's like, what is wrong with people? But yeah, I think there's a lot of ways that you can build community. I think a lot of these platforms allow you to be part of groups. On the online piece, offline, yeah, there's tons of networking groups. I've been approached and I've been part of some dad groups where, hey, like
Oh, I
we're
love
just
that.
dads. We want to, like, our focus priority is being the best dad and husband we can be, right? And everything else will do well once we have that as a priority, right? And so like there's tons of those kind of groups, there's tons of those kind of people. It is probably a little bit of learning more about you and where your community lives, but there's people that you can connect with out there. And once you find that group, yeah, I mean, it could be really powerful for you personally and professionally.
Thank you. I love that. Those are such great tips. Me and Bridget are both like super community people. So we've been trying to like get more in person. You saw one of our events, by the way. We have another one coming up. We'll let you know. But Max, tell us where we can find you, where we can connect with you. This conversation was powerful. So whoever is listening, we highly, highly recommend his agency.
Awesome. Yeah, so attentiontrading.com, all spelled out. That's our social handles across the board. And then obviously on LinkedIn, Max Lowy. On Instagram, I'm the real Max Lowy. I don't want people to confuse me with, the fake Max Lowy, if there is one out there. But yeah, we're on every platform, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, post across all different platforms. And, sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't. Things I post over there where I'm like, oh, it's going to crush on TikTok. It fails and goes viral on Instagram. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And so I want people to understand there's no real playbook. There's a playbook of like, oh, hey, we've seen success, we're going to try this. But like, if people knew what to do, they would just do it and it would work, right? It's not the case, especially when it comes to business, especially with all these different platforms and algorithms changing on a constant basis. Again, will TikTok be here in a few months? I don't even know, right? It's just like, it's crazy how fast this shit changes. So it's trying to stay on top and continue to do what you think is right.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, Max. This was just a great conversation. I hope that we can have more in the future. Make sure everyone goes and checks out everything that Max is up to. And thank you all for listening to another episode of Visibility Era, the podcast.